Hi, it's Des here. I'm in Denver and Colorado. We're at Commvault GO 2019. I had the pleasure of being joined by Ranga Rajagopalan. Great to see you. Thanks for making time to catch up with me.
Thank you.
Now you're the VP of product management at Commvault. I wanted to have a chat with you about, I guess, a general tech roundup and just a conversation about some of the product updates you've had lately, if that's okay.
Sure.
Let's start with the innovation we've seen coming out of your organization as far as Commvault's concerned over the last 12 months. And we've had some really exciting announcements with both the acquisition of Hedvig recently. We've had yesterday's announcements with regard to Metallic, which is very exciting. But I think in many ways it's probably stolen some of the limelight of the amazing innovation you've actually driven through the organization through the regular releases in the last 12 months. Give us a bit of a walk through the last 12 months and some of the exciting things you've been working on and releasing.
Sure. Thank you, Des. Thanks for hosting me and thanks for being here at Commvault GO. You're right, so we have too many announcements going on that sometimes it's easy to lose sight of what's going on. So there's the Hedvig announcement, Metallic announcement, Activate announcement, we'll get to all of that. But I wanted to take a couple of minutes to talk about the continuous innovation that's going on behind the scenes, which goes right to the foundation of Commvault. So Commvault Complete, Backup and Recovery, our flagship product, and we've been doing quarterly innovation updates to that every quarter. Let me just walk you through some of the key innovations that have happened there.
Please do, yeah.
First one is all about multi-cloud, right? So what are we doing to accelerate the multi-cloud journey? We now have the ability to migrate to and from and between AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, Alibaba. So a lot of innovation going into making customers comfortable in moving between these cloud targets for different use cases. Whether it's storage use cases or DR use cases or just cloud native migration, we enable all of that. On the virtualization front, we've been doing a lot of research into making sure that applications can come up when they need to come up. So more from a DR validation, ransomware, protection kind of use cases. And our bread and butter of increasing the depth of applications that we support, that keeps on going like an engine. So we recently introduced support for Splunk, for OpenShift, that keeps on coming, right? And all of this while we continue to focus on simplicity as our core mantra. So more and more use cases getting into command center, focusing on getting the API automation going. So a lot of regular stuff that's going on, which kind of, we just didn't have time to talk about that because there's so much good news that's going on with all the updates.
Indeed. Well, I caught up with Al Bunty yesterday, and one of the things that came out of that conversation, which I'd always sort of had the sense of within the organization, is that literally from the day that the organization was founded, a couple of decades ago, there was this focus on providing great support, great R&D, great development. So much so that even here now, this year at Commvault GO 2019, you have, I think, 45 developers in their own booth in a campfire chat space down the end of the floor where we can go and do one-on-ones and whiteboards. So I think that in many ways speaks volumes about the culture and the behavior and the focus that the organization has always had, and that's now reflected in, again, your consistent releases and the continuation of the development of not just the relationships professionally with those organizations that are public and private cloud providers, but the integration and the depth of integration, right, and the types of services you can offer in there.
Yeah, just look around you, right? There is so much energy here that it's amazing. And one of the big things that I see going on here, which is very noteworthy, is we are not here just to talk about our innovation. Our customers are innovating even faster than us.
Indeed.
And meet the experts and all these campfires. They give us the ability to connect with our customers and understand what is most important for them today. Where are they trending in the future? Are they moving more into the cloud? Or is there a particular data management use case that we're overlooking? And that kind of drives our strategy going forward, because it's really a partnership, right? And backup data management is such a critical part of the IT lifecycle that if we're going to go off on a vacuum or we're just going to talk about what we are doing, that's not fun at all. So meet the experts. That session has been so popular that we have such a long wait list for that, and we brought in more engineers just to keep the conversations going.
Well, in fact, at the drinks the other day, I was standing next to a number of people. I had this habit of sort of standing around a group of people and just listening to the conversation, and the number of people were talking about how they were going to get themselves some time there to take actual challenges they've got now, where they were going to put the idea forward and say, hey, I've got this business case, can you come and help me with it? And that seems to me to be a lot of what Commvault's been doing for a long time, but more so in the last 12 months I've seen a number of discussions online and also inside boardrooms where I'm hearing that companies are coming to their Commvault partner, their integrator, whomever it might be, they're working with you and saying, we've got this business case, or we've got this use case, how can you help us implement it? And becoming more and more complex.
It's all about the ecosystem, right? Like today at the keynote, you heard Cisco talking, yesterday there was HPE talking, but we also take the ecosystem down to a level where if there are vendors who are providing certain technologies, such as artificial intelligence to figure out more compliance capabilities, we have the ability to integrate with all of them, and that goes into the basic foundation of how we build our products. Because we have a lot of good IP that we bring to the table, but we also honor and respect whatever our partners bring to the table, and we are a partner-first company. We make sure that we are able to very nicely integrate with the technologies that our partners bring to the table.
In many ways, when people implement your platform and form those relationships, it's kind of like a marriage because they're entrusting you with their most important assets in many ways. You've got humans and human resource that are probably asset number one, and then data asset number two.
And applications become the consuming asset.
We hear this whole thing about data being the new oil, but I think it's even more critical in that the products like Activate, for example, are now going from its initial use case that it had potentially to all these other use cases where even yourselves, you're using it internally, you're the first customer for it in many ways, eating your own dog food as they say. But you've now got third parties plugging and integrating into that, which I'd like to come back to in a minute. I want to come back to those use cases because I'm sure you've had some amazing stories about the types of variation and divergence into the use cases and some of the innovations you've had in your core product alone. Are there some examples where you've sort of looked at it and gone, we didn't expect that, we knew it could do it, but we didn't know the market was ready for it, or we didn't know there was a place for that yet with your traditional platform itself and different use cases?
It's interesting that you use the word platform, and that resonates a lot to us. Like what we do at Commvault is build that data platform which has the ability to deliver those data services. And the truth of the matter is, data services evolve with customers' needs, right? If we go into Activate, we started out as a compliance and governance product, and that's where it is still today. But if you look at the definition that we have provided to the key use cases, file storage optimization, sensitive data governance, e-discovery and compliance search, this is coming directly from what customers need today, right? And the ability for us to build it on top of the platform gives us some unique advantages. We can go between live data and backups, we can go between backups and archives, and that, removes the boundaries that customers otherwise need to put in place simply to work around the compromises of the products. Right? So we were talking about eating our own dog food or eating our own tasty food.
Tasty food.
Activate is a very good example of that, right? So if you look at how we analyze our pipeline, we actually use Activate workflows for that.
Indeed.
Data insights. I don't know if you're going to be talking with Warren, our Chief Legal Officer, but they use a tool called CB Legal, which is actually built on top of Activate. Right? So it's all back to the platform for us and what use cases we want to enable out of it.
Well, there was a phrase yesterday that I really liked, which is where you're building an ecosystem from the platform, and that ecosystem includes your own capabilities, and then beyond that, the partners and integrators and VARs and et cetera. But then the customers themselves are bringing sort of their business partners and their suppliers to the table saying, how can we integrate this, how can we plug this in? And you mentioned a couple such as Splunk and so forth. You're working with the likes of Microsoft Azure and Amazon Web Services, where these are not considered competitors anymore, they're value add. And I think this is a real testament to what you've actually built in the last couple of decades, and particularly the innovations of the last year or so, where now you're adopting some of those great capabilities and using them as strengths rather than challenges. Tell us a bit more about what you're doing internally with regard to how you're applying Activate, because I know you've got a great deal of capacity inside there now with a bunch of artificial intelligence leveraging machine learning, for example, to not just look at the types of data there and the patterns and the behavior, but even some outliers such as, I saw a comment the other day around, if there's a file encrypted, is it a spreadsheet or a Word document, or is it a zip file that's encrypted, or is it ransomware? So this must be something now that's sort of coming out of this whole new challenge of cybersecurity and ransomware, where you've got to be very, very capable of working out, is that a legitimate thing, or is it a false flag, or is it an actual bona fide attack?
And that's where true partnership and collaboration comes in. Right? They're like about 40% of our install base calls back home, and we use Activate, a variant of Activate, to actively monitor the data. Now, some companies might call it artificial intelligence, whatever, right? It's customer first, whatever we need to do to keep the customers safe and protected. There were a couple of instances where we know the historic data change rate, and then we suddenly saw like a huge spike in data change rate. We just contacted the customer asking, hey, is this normal? Are you doing something? And it turned out that we were actually able to detect a ransomware attack just by looking at the data change rate. Now, is this ecosystem? Is this artificial intelligence? Is this customizable workflow? I don't know. I frankly don't care.
I would
we
call it a
have the
capability.
ability. You know, it goes
Yeah.
back to the data brain concept that Sanjay was talking
I
about.
love that idea.
Yesterday. We
Yep.
have that ability to look across what is happening at the customer environments and provide that value-added insights to them, simply because we are able to look across a wider range of time, right? And that's where some of these ever-developing use cases come in. Who knows, maybe next year you're going to see a product around that because it's such a useful thing for us, right? So it's all evolution.
Absolutely. I can imagine a scenario where we have smart agents now sort of running inside this cloudy world, constantly looking for all these incidents and
Anomalies,
events, and
right?
then you can just create models in the machine
Yeah.
learning platforms to sort of look at and go, well, it's Monday, this is when something happens, it's Tuesday, this is something else
You
happens.
got it, you got it.
Yeah.
And if we were to find some partner who actually excels in the technology,
Yeah.
I'll give you an example, right? There's one vendor who is specializing in looking at sentiments
Yep.
while doing searches.
Right.
Now, that's an amazing area, right? And
Indeed.
if it's valuable to customers, we'll find a way to integrate with them. That's the customization that's built into the platform. So again, the more we think about the platform, the more we think about all the values that it brings to the table, it makes the products all the more acceptable.
Absolutely. And often, as unfortunate it is, the insider threat, not so much just somebody angry searching, looking for things to then leave the company, but maybe accidentally responding to something that they were fished with or something
Patterns,
to that
right?
effect.
Yeah, it's patterns. Just like we are able to look at patterns, malicious agents are also able to look at patterns.
Yeah.
And they're going to make use of the same thing. So our ability to intercept and figure out what's happening to the extent that we can now. When you manage the backups, you're managing a lot of data. You're sitting on top of a very rich information source. Making it actionable for our customers is really where the use dimension of our 4-part strategy comes into the picture.
Now, I had a great conversation with a gentleman from Canberra University yesterday around this very thing. And I think it was circa 2013 they realized that there was an opportunity due to a building environment where they had some infrastructure that was being changed.
Yeah.
They were like, well, this is an opportunity to now look at this and go, well, we should look at what we're doing. And they worked with you to address their disaster recovery requirement. And they leveraged Amazon Web Services at that stage for that, to be able to replicate and back up and then stand up, instantiate and test and so forth and shut down. The interesting comment he made was it was something like 6 times faster doing that over a wide area network connectivity into a third-party space like AWS using your platform. And not only were they surprised that it worked the functionality layer, but it was 6 times faster and more cost effective from what I understand. Now, that's a use case where you'd think DR backup with Commvault would be normal, but to do it in the way they did to a public cloud like that, often we hear of the death of 1,000 cuts from regions and rights, but I mean, you guys don't charge at that level, you charge for the service. So I think they were blown away, frankly.
Yeah, there are 3 aspects there, there are 3 dimensions, and we need to think of those 3 dimensions whenever we think of any innovation.
Right.
Is it going to be simple enough for the customers to use? Because if you're going to make their lives, which is already very difficult, more complicated, it's not a winner, right? The second one is the cost aspect.
Right.
We need to continuously innovate in such a way that the operational complexity goes down, and at the same time the total cost of operations goes down as well. Your example is a very good instance of that, right? The third one is really, are you going to get some new use cases enabled out of that, right? So in this case, when we talk about cloud, and Don was showing it in the demo on the keynote today, we keep the cloud instances powered down.
Right.
And we power it up only when a DR needs to be done.
Perfect.
Right? Similarly, we can power it up only when your DR test needs to run, or only when you need to run your analytics, right? So quickly the use cases start building on top of each other. As long as you keep sight of the 3 invariants, everything becomes possible.
And this is the magic of sort of, quote unquote cloud models, isn't it? That this whole lift and shift of physical to virtual to cloud sort of killed us because we really just virtualized and cloudified what we had on tin. When you can, as you said, instantiate and then deploy, or just instantiate, deploy, and then park, and not have to pay for it because it's sitting there. That's the whole power of cloud and the ability to do that.
It's captured very nicely in this cloud responsibly comment.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it, right? It's sometimes a mandate that you need to use cloud, but if you were able to take a step back and look at, where does it make sense for us? How can we really make it a differentiated use case? That's really where all this functionality comes into the picture.
Interestingly enough, the University of Canterbury went on, I think it was like 2017 in the end, and they implemented a second major transition with their archive data. So not only did they actually take
That's the storage use case, right?
So
you have the DR use case, and now you get to the storage use case.
And they were already a customer within the university anyway, and they've got a very diverse user group in that they've got the school and the lecturers and so forth themselves, sales, they've got students, but they've also got researchers.
Yeah.
So really critical data that's had federal grants funding it, and the loss of that data sometimes, people working on things like regeneration of the Great Barrier Reef, if they lose 20 years of the data, it's never going to come back.
That's like a life-changing event at that point of time,
So I was really impressed that they went not just through, I guess, replicating production to DR and having that as a standby warm space, but then they went to look at, well, what other use cases we have, and they found this massive cost saving, and we had to leverage, I think it was Glacier on AWS, still using the same platform, just another use case. I'm sure the ROI that was significant because there wasn't a massive reinvestment, they just added another feature.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a common thing you're seeing with some of the innovation
Back to
you've
the
had last
platform,
year.
right? You have all of it available to you.
Yeah.
Once you've done the analysis, once you're confident that it's actually going to help you, economically as well as operationally, turn it on.
No, I love it. Now, I want to just talk about some of the key takeaways you've had at this event. I mean, congratulations on a fantastic event in the first place. The team have done an amazing job, having a great time here, but I love the format of, day zero, as I'm calling it, of training and certification and networking, and then the drinks that night was great. As I said, in fact, there was a great little moment where I saw a couple of guys meet, and they were effectively from competitive companies, let's say, and they met each other, said hello, and then they looked at the badge and went, oh, you work for my competitor. But in about 30 seconds, they realized they were really just birds of a feather. They were using the same tools, same technology, here with the same brand, make model manufacturers alike as far as Commvault goes, using similar products. They forgot that they were competitors, and they started talking about common challenges and swapping knowledge, and I think that underpins the entire value proposition of this whole thing.
Yeah, this happened last night, right? We had a customer appreciation dinner at the Mile High Stadium. Awesome place, by the way.
I saw that.
Beautiful pictures, right? And in my dinner table, there were two people fitting that same profile, and they were like, oh. And they started discussing best practices and whatnot. It becomes like such a good conversation to have, right? So it's great that we are able to host this event, which brings together all the experts in one place. We are able to get our own experts and drive the product strategy forward, because strategy is our own collected responsibility, right? And these events help in fostering that partnership and take things forward. And we are very, very grateful for our partners like Red Hat and HP and NetApp, who are all here exchanging all these innovative ideas that are driving us forward.
In many ways, this is like the crown and the jewel for you, because I think it was Chris Bell yesterday when I was talking to him, said that it's almost a case that you run through the entire year, as it were, up to this event, and then you draw a line in the sand and go, right, now what are we going to do for the next year? So this is sort of the crown jewel, and that the shining glory moments. Like, here's all the great things we've done for the year, let us share that knowledge with you, share what you've learnt with us, and let's sort of go through that networking, that training, certification, the keynotes, with whatever, and you had some amazing news to share anyway.
Nicely put from Chris Paul's perspective. Now, I run product management, right? So for me, this event is a continuation of the product strategy directions, right? It gives us a very good opportunity to validate, because we didn't talk about that, but there are so many customer EBCs that are going on. We have the strategic customer forums, so it gives us an opportunity to validate, is the direction that we are going in the direction that's going to help you?
Right.
Are there some use cases that we are not looking at? Are there new areas that you want us to get to? Because our customers are our best champions, right?
Indeed.
And okay, those are all the past stories, and let's face it, right? There are situations where we could have done even better, and this gives us an opportunity to actually have that conversation and understand where we need to be doing better, where we need to be doing newer things, where we need to be rethinking things. Like, for instance, Activate pricing. We changed the entire pricing model, listening to our customers, right? In some areas, it makes sense for us to license a product as it is. In other areas, it makes sense to go flexible. This was an example of the latter. We listened to our customers. We've introduced that flexibility, right? So, I can't be more thankful for this event and for influencers like you to provide that behind-the-scenes feedback. Like, you're all nice in the camera, but I know that there's a lot of feedback that's going to come our way. So we're thankful for all of that.
No, not at all. And I think that's a great testament to the culture of the organization, that you literally have your finger in the pulse with all of these things, not just this event, but just regularly talking to the client, to the market.
Always.
At the work that you're doing with the cloud survey that leads up to this, just constantly tapping into that knowledge base, that knowledge source, sort of ready and willing to tell you if you're just willing to listen, which not every organization is. Last quick question for you then. If there were some key takeaways from this event, now obviously there's thousands and thousands and thousands of people here, which is fantastic, but the majority of the planet can't make it here for various reasons. For folk who are watching and folk who wish they were here but for whatever reason couldn't be, what are some of the key takeaways you would like them to sort of be thinking about when they go forward? Particularly, are there any talking points they should be discussing at their sort of, water cooler or stand-up scrums every week, or is there a particular agenda item they should be putting on their boardroom discussions on a monthly basis that are things that you're seeing out there, you're thinking, well, if people could be talking about this, considering this, we could probably help them with that?
I think that goes back to the conversation around what are the big industry trends and what are the key areas that people need to watch out for. I'll go back to some of what the experts were saying in the various keynotes, right? The first one is mass data fragmentation.
Right.
It's a reality. Data can be your richest asset or it can be your most expensive resource. And I think the water cooler conversation needs to be on how do we look at it as an entire data strategy, right? Back to Sanjay's keynote, know, protect, use, manage. How do we effectively handle all those paradigms in order to make data your richest asset, and how you can get all kind of actionable insights from that. So that, I think, should be a very important conversation, because that determines how you're going to convert that into a competitive edge, into a differentiator against whoever you're going and playing against.
Oh, I like that, and I like your reference to the mass data fragmentation, because I mean, as an organization, Commvault has been dealing with data up to petabytes and multiples, but a lot of organizations are now being challenged with this idea that not only they're getting lots of data, but they're getting very complex data and fragmented data from so many places they find it exhausting. I imagine they are coming to you saying, we are not in the data business per se, we're just acquiring it through, whether it's the higher throughput that 5G is going to make available, whether it's the complexity of ransomware and cybersecurity, whether it's IoT and tens of thousands of sensors, or even now new technologies like autonomous things, where things are now a lot smarter, whether it's on robotics, manufacturing.
Coming from the edge, right?
You must have a deluge of people coming to you saying, where do we start? How do we? I guess this comes back to some of the key takeaways of what they need to be working on.
You talked about universities earlier. I was talking about healthcare industries. They are already seeing the deluge of information, right?
Right.
And that's why they are some of our most strategic, important customers. Because when it comes to managing data at scale, there are very few players who can really provide the complete strategic solution. And it's only going to get broader and broader. The data deluge is going to continue, and it's essential that we are able to handle all the data needs. Back to how do we enable the degrees of freedom while still keeping it simple, while still keeping it economical.
Indeed.
Right? And I'm sure we're going to continue this journey, and we're going to keep seeing more and more of these use cases evolve as we move into the future.
There's no doubt of that. I mean, we're seeing the transition when digital transformations now getting people to treat their source code and their development environments just as importantly as the production and DR. They're testing and training and stress testing, load testing environments. But also the other inspector, now got chief digital officers, chief compliance officers, chief risk officers who are saying, how do we get one record back? How do we get one file back? Or
it all goes back to data, and it all goes back to the concept of being data ready, right? And that's what we focus on day in, day out, every day.
No, I love it. Well, I love the hashtag here, that more than ready. And I think that encapsulates the entire thing, because at the end of the day, that's what we need to do. We need to get up in the morning, make sure that no matter what we're doing, our platforms, our technology, our partners, our infrastructure, our business is literally more than ready. It doesn't matter whether it's...
And we personally need to be more than ready.
And it could be something as simple as the next customer, it could be a cyber attack, you never know.
Right? We need to be ready for everything.
I love it. We've got to be Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts. Well, thank you so much for making time to catch up.
Thank you,
It's been great
to
see you.
Talking with you.
And at some point, I'd love to get you on the podcast to talk about Commvault Activate in more detail.
Yeah, that'll be my pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me at the event, and hopefully we'll be back next year with you, and I'm sure there'll be another 12 months of great innovation coming out of you and your team.
Thank you, Des.
Thanks so much.
Catch up even before that.
Cheers.
Thank you.